I'm gonna look this up. And let's get going. Good afternoon, football fans. Big Al here on this Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. And welcome to another edition of The Week That Was, as we'll be taking a look at the individual and team statistical numbers from Week 10 of the 2024 NFL season, including our primetime games with the instant classic between the Bengals and Ravens from Thursday night, the Lions and Texans on Sunday night, and the Dolphins and Rams on Monday night. Of all the Sunday games we'll be taking a look at, we'll also look at the Giants and Panthers from Germany, the Steelers and the Commanders, the Broncos and the Chiefs, and the Eagles at the Cowboys. That is among the 14 games we'll be taking a look at this week. After the rundown, stay tuned for my Week 11 power rankings. And then after that, the updated playoff picture in the NFL after 10 weeks of play. So with that, let's dive into the Week 10 edition of The Week That Was. But before I do, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and get notified every time I go live. Okay, here we go. Our first game is the instant classic on Thursday Night Football, which saw the Baltimore Ravens hold off the Cincinnati Bengals by a final score of 35-34. The Bengals dropped to 4-6, while the Ravens improved their record to 7-3, and they have swept Cincinnati in the season series. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson finished 25 of 33 for 290 yards with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions and a QB rating of 141.4. He also added 7 rushes for 33 yards. Derrick Henry, 16 carries, 68 yards, and a touchdown. 1 catch for 3 yards on 1 target. Tylan Wallace was the leading receiver for the Ravens. 3 catches, 115, and a touchdown on 3 targets. Mark Andrews, 6 for 68 and a touchdown on 7 targets. Rashad Bateman, 6 for 54 and a touchdown on 8 targets. Zay Flowers, 4 for 34 on 6 targets. And Nelson Aguilar, 1 catch, 6 yards on 2 targets and a touchdown. No field goals for Justin Tucker. 3 of 4 on extra points. Jordan Stout finished with 5 punts, averaging 46.2 yards. Long punt is 54 with 2 punts inside the 20-yard line. Roquan Smith led the Ravens defense. He had 12 total tackles. Marlon Humphrey with 5 solo tackles, 1 forced fumble, and a pass defense. Trenton Simpson had 7 tackles. Brandon Stevens, he finishes with 5 tackles and a pass defense. Nande Matabike, I should say. He had 5 tackles, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble. He is my defensive player of the week. Ardarius Washington had 3 solo tackles and 2 passes defensed. And Kyle Hamilton had 4 tackles and 2 passes defensed for the Ravens. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, I decided to come with 2 players for Offensive Player of the Week. The first is Joe Burrow. 34 of 56, 428 yards with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, and a 108.3 QB rating, and 2 rushes for 6 yards. Chase Brown held to 42 yards on 13 carries with a touchdown, but he was real big in the passing game. He had 9 receptions, 52 yards on 11 targets. And that brings me to the second of my 2 offensive players of the week, and that's Ja'Marr Chase. The man went off on Thursday night for 11 catches and 264 yards plus 3 touchdowns on 17 targets. Tanner Hudson had 6 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. Mike Gesicki, 4 for 30 on 9 targets. Andre Yosivas, 2 for 29 on 4 targets. No field goals on the night for Evan McPherson, but he was 4 for 4 on extra points. Ryan Reckow, 3 punts, averaging 41.3. Long punt was 46, with 2 inside the 20-yard line. Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson led the Cincinnati defense with 8 tackles apiece. Jordan Battle had 7 tackles. Cam Taylor-Britt, 4 solo tackles, 2 passes defense. BJ Hill had 4 total tackles. Geno Stone and Trey Hendrickson, they each had 3 tackles in this game. And Mike Hilton had 5 tackles for the Bengals. Total yards, 470 for the Bengals and 389 for the Ravens. Passing yards, 421 to 290 for Cincinnati. Rush yards was 99 to 49 for Baltimore. 27 first downs for the Bengals versus 20 for the Ravens. Both teams were good on third down. 8 of 16 for the Bengals, 7 of 12 for the Ravens, and 2 of 4 on fourth down for the Bengals. Cincinnati had 3 penalties, 23 yards, 3 sacks taken for 7, 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, and 3 punts. Baltimore had 11 penalties for 81 yards, no sacks taken, no punts, no lost fumbles or interceptions, and 5 punts. Cincinnati won the time of possession battle, 31 minutes, 35 seconds, versus 28 minutes, 25 seconds for the Ravens. Closing line was Baltimore -6, and the over-under was 53. I took the Ravens to win and to cover, so Baltimore gets the straight-up win, while Cincinnati, as the 6-point underdog, covered, only losing by a single point. So that makes me 1-0 straight up and 0-1 in my ATS picks. On to Sunday, and the final international game of 2024 sees the Carolina Panthers win back-to-back games for the first time in almost 2 years, as they knock off the New York Giants 20-17 in overtime. So with their first back-to-back wins since week 12 and 14 of 2022, the Carolina Panthers improved to 3-7, while the New York Giants dropped to 2-8. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, 15 of 25, 126 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 86.4 QB rating, plus 2 carries, 30 yards. Chuba Hubbard, he had a pretty big game. He was a candidate for Offensive Player of the Week. 28 carries, 153 yards, and a touchdown, and 4 catches, 16 yards on 6 targets. Jalen Coker led the Panthers with 3 catches, 41 yards on 8 targets. Rookie Xavier Legette, 3 catches, 40 yards on 4 targets. David Moore finishes with 2 catches, 18 yards on 4 targets. And Jatavian Sanders, 2 catches, 8 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. Eddie Pinheiro, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 53, 2 of 2 on extra points. Johnny Hekker, 7 punts, averaging 48.1. Long punt, 55, with 3 inside the 20-yard line. You had 2 leading tacklers for the Carolina Panthers. You had J.C. Horn and Xavier Woods, each with 8 tackles. Both had a pass defense in the game, and Woods added an interception. Dane Johnson had 6 solo tackles. A'Shawn Robinson finishes with 7 tackles, 1 sack, and a forced fumble. DJ Wonnum with 6 tackles, also with a sack and a forced fumble. Shy Tuttle, 5 tackles. Jadeveon Clowney, 4 tackles and a pass defense. And Josie Jewell with 6 tackles, 2 passes defense, and an interception for the Panthers. For the Giants, Daniel Jones, 22 of 37, 190 yards, no touchdowns through the air, and 2 interceptions, with a 50.5 QB rating. He did add 7 rushes, 26 yards, and a rushing touchdown to those numbers. Tyrone Tracy Jr., 18 carries, 103 yards, and a touchdown. But on New York's first play of overtime, he fumbled the ball, and it ended up costing the Giants the game at the end. Devin Singletary, 8 carries, 40 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson, 5 catches, 51 yards on 8 targets, leading the Giants receivers. Rookie Malik Neighbors, 6 for 50 yards on 10 targets. Jalen Hyatt had 4 catches, 39 yards on 4 targets. And Theo Johnson with 4 catches, 37 yards on 6 targets. Graham Gano returned to place kicking duties for the Giants, easy for me to say. He was 1 for 2 on field goals. His only make was from 42. And 2 for 2 on extra points. Jamie Gillen had 5 punts, averaging 40.8, long punt 46, 4 punts inside the 20-yard line. Leading tacklers include Tyler Newman. He had 12 total tackles. Bobby Okereke had 11 tackles. Former Panther Brian Burns, facing his former team for the first time, he had 9 tackles and a sack. Micah McFadden has 7 tackles. Drew Phillips finishes with 4 tackles and a forced fumble. Deontay Banks, 3 solo tackles. And Cordell Flott with 3 tackles and a pass defense for the Giants. Total yards, New York 342, Carolina 306. Passing yards were 175 to 118 for the Giants. Rush yards were 188 to 167 for the Panthers. The Giants lose this game despite 24 first downs, while Carolina had 15. The Giants were 7 of 15 on third down, Panthers 6 of 15. 3 penalties, 15 yards for New York, 2 sacks taken for 15, 1 lost fumble, 2 interceptions, and 5 punts. 10 penalties, 87 yards for Carolina, 1 sack taken for 8, 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, and 7 punts. Time of possession also favored the New York Giants. 34 minutes, 29 seconds versus 27 minutes, 38 seconds for the Panthers. Closing line was New York minus 6.5. Over-under is 40.5. I took the Giants to win and cover, and I lost both picks. So now I am 1-1 straight up and off to an 0-2 start in my spread picks. Moving on to the Sunday afternoon portion of the schedule, we'll start with the early games, beginning with the New Orleans Saints snapping a 7-game losing streak with their new head coach, Darren Rizzi. He was the special teams coordinator for the Saints before he took over for the recently fired Dennis Allen. They would beat the Atlanta Falcons 20-17 and split the season series. So the Saints win for the first time since September 15th, ending a 7-game losing streak. They are now 3-7. The Atlanta Falcons still in first place in the NFC South at 6-4. We'll begin with individual numbers for the victorious Saints. Derek Carr was 16 of 25 for 269 with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions and a QB rating of 126.9, probably one of his best games this year. Carr also added 4 carries for 17 yards. Alvin Kamara, 17 carries, 55 yards. So not much to speak of with this ground attack for the Saints. Leading receiver is the newest Saint, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, otherwise known as MVS. 3 catches, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 3 targets in his New Orleans debut. Alvin Kamara added 5 catches, 54 yards on 6 targets, along with his rushing numbers. Taysom Hill and Kevin Austin Jr. each with 2 catches, 36 yards on 2 targets. And Jawan Johnson finishes with 2 catches for 22 yards on 3 targets. Blake Grupe 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 38, 2 for 2 on extra points. And Matthew Hayball, 5 punts averaging 44.8, long punt 51 with 4 inside the 20. Ugo Amadi led the Saints defense with 9 solo tackles and a pass defense. Alontae Taylor had 9 tackles as well, including 7 solo tackles. Shamari Jean-Charles, 7 tackles. Pete Werner, 5 tackles. Will Harris, 8 tackles. Werner also had a pass defense. I forgot to mention that. Tyrann Mathieu, 3 solo tackles, 3 passes defense, and an interception. Demario Davis was actually the team's leading tackler. He had 10, including 2 solo and 8 assists, plus a pass defense. Peyton Turner turned in a pretty good performance for the Saints. 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, and a pass defense. And Cameron Jordan with 3 tackles and a sack for the Saints. For the Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins, 23 of 38, 306 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 75.1 QB rating. Bijan Robinson, 20 carries, 116, and 2 touchdowns rushing. 3 catches, 28 yards on 4 targets in the receiving game. Meanwhile, Tyler Algier, 11 carries, 59 yards. Leading receiver for Atlanta is Drake London, 8 catches, 97 yards on 12 targets. Darnell Mooney, 5 catches, 96 yards on 10 targets. Kyle Pitts, 4 catches, 55 yards on 6 targets. And Ray McLeod, 3 catches, 30 yards on 4 targets. Alright. Younghoe Koo, probably one of his worst games as an NFL kicker. 1 for 4 on field goals, his only make coming from 27, and 2 for 2 on extra points. And 3 punts for Bradley Pinion, averaging 48, long punt 57, with 1 inside the 20-yard line. So the Falcons special teams really let them down on this day. Alright. Nate Landman had 8 total tackles for the Falcons defense. Clark Phillips III had 7 tackles. Caden Ellis had 10 tackles, which leads the team. David Onyemata, 4 tackles. Jesse Bates, 4 tackles as well. Khalid Kareem, 3 tackles for the Falcons. Total yards, 468 for Atlanta, 365 for New Orleans. Passing yards favored the Falcons slightly, 287 to 269. But rush yards was a big edge to Atlanta, 181 to 96. Same with first downs. The Falcons had 25, Saints had 14. Alright. 5 of 14 third downs for the Falcons, 5 of 13 for the Saints. 1 of 2 fourth downs for the Falcons, and 0 for 1 for the Saints. 6 penalties, 45 yards for Atlanta. 3 sacks taken for 19. No lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 3 punts. 8 penalties, 76 yards for New Orleans. No sacks taken, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 5 punts. Falcons just got into ball hawk territory as they possessed for 35 minutes 7 seconds versus 24 minutes and 53 seconds for the Saints. Closing line was Atlanta minus 3.5, over under 47.5. I picked Atlanta to both win and cover, and I'm off to a pretty bad start with my picks. 0-3 ATS and 1-2 straight up. Our next game is the Buffalo Bills going into Lucas Oil Stadium and taking down the Indianapolis Colts 30-20, despite a not ideal passing day for Josh Allen. As we go to the individual numbers for the Bills, Allen was 22 of 37 for 280 yards with no touchdowns and 2 INTs and a 60.6 QB rating. Hopefully he wasn't looking ahead to the Chiefs next week. Allen added 8 carries, 50 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Meanwhile, James Cook, 19 carries, 80 yards, and a rushing touchdown of his own, plus 1 catch for 5 yards on 3 targets. Leading receivers for the Bills include Matt Collins, 4 catches, 86 yards on 4 targets. Khalil Shakir, 6 for 58 on 9 targets. Dawson Knox, 2 for 40 yards on 3 targets. Curtis Samuel, 4 for 35 yards on 8 targets. Ty Johnson, 3 catches and 32 yards on 3 targets. And Dalton Kincaid, 2 for 24 on 5 targets. Tyler Bass, a perfect 3 for 3 on field goals. Long was 47. And a perfect 3 for 3 on extra points. Sam Martin, just 2 punts, averaging 54.5. Long punt was 61, with both ending up inside the 20-yard line. Good job for him. Dorian Williams had 9 tackles. Taylor Rapp had 7 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Terrell Bernard, 9 tackles and a pass defense. Cam Lewis finishes with 5 tackles. Christian Benford, 5 tackles and a forced fumble. Rasul Douglas, 5 tackles. Greg Rousseau had 4 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. And Taron Johnson, 3 tackles, a pass defense, or rather 2 passes defense, plus a sack and a pick 6 early in this ball game. He would intercept Joe Flacco and return it 23 yards for a touchdown. And then AJ Epinesa had 3 tackles and a sack for Buffalo. Total yards were 415 for the Bills and 361 for the Colts. Passing yards, 280 for Buffalo, 240 for Indianapolis. Rush yards, 135 for the Bills, 121 for the Colts. Buffalo had 21 first downs, 19 for Indy. Oops. I messed that up. Let me get this back up and keep reading these numbers. Alright. Buffalo 7 of 14 on third down. Indy 4 for 11. Both teams 2 for 3 on fourth down. 8 penalties, 54 yards for the Bills. 2 sacks taken for no yards. No lost fumbles. 2 interceptions. And 2 punts. 5 penalties, 25 yards for the Colts. 4 sacks taken for 32. 1 lost fumble. 3 interceptions and 2 punts as well. So not a lot of punting going on in this game. 32 minutes, 8 seconds time of possession for the Bills. 27 minutes and 52 seconds for Indianapolis. Closing line was Buffalo minus 4.5. Over under 47. I took the Colts. Or no, I did not. I was just playing with you. I took the Bills to win and to cover, and I got both picks. So now I'm 2-2 straight up, and I get my first ATS win of the week versus 3 losses. Pretty good divisional tilt between the Broncos and Chiefs next up, as Kansas City got a blocked field goal in the closing seconds to hold off Denver 16-14, as Kansas City stays undefeated at a perfect 9-0. Denver drops to 5-5 with the loss. Individual numbers for the Chiefs, starting with Patrick Mahomes. 28 of 42, 266 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 92 QB rating, and 3 carries, 19 yards. Not much to speak about on this rush attack for the Chiefs either. Kareem Hunt, 14 carries, only 35 yards. That's 2.5 yards per run. But he did lead Kansas City in receiving. 7 catches, 65 yards on 10 targets. Travis Kelce, 8 for 64 and a touchdown on 12 targets. DeAndre Hopkins, in just his 3rd game with the Chiefs, 4 catches, 56 yards on 5 targets. Samaje Perine, 2 for 37 on 2 targets. And Noah Gray, 2 catches, 18 yards on 2 targets. Harrison Butker, 3 for 3 on field goals, on with 36, 1 for 1 on extra points. Matt Araiza, 4 punts, averaging 53.3, long punts 64, 2 touchbacks, and 1 inside the 20-yard line. Nazeez Johnson had 10 tackles and a sack, leading the Chiefs' defense. Then you've got Trent McDuffie with 6 tackles, Nick Bolton with 6 tackles and a sack, Chamari Connor, 5 tackles, Justin Reed, 7 tackles, Drew Tranquill, 5 tackles, Brian Cook with 4 tackles, Felix and Anudak Uzuma, I think. I don't know. Either way, he had 2 solo tackles. And Jaden Hicks also had 2 solo tackles for the Chiefs. Really not a bad game for Bo Nix as we look at individual numbers for the Broncos. Nix, 22 of 30 for 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 115.3 QB rating. He did have 3 rushes in the game, but for minus 5 yards. Audric Estime. This is the rookie running back out of Notre Dame. He had 14 carries, 53 yards to lead the Broncos' ground attack. So really, neither team ran the ball all that well in this game. Cortland Sutton, 6 catches, 70 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. Devon Vele, 4 catches, 39 yards and a touchdown on 4 targets. Adam Troutman, 1 for 34 on his only target. Lil Jordan Humphrey, 2 for 23 on 3 targets. Lucas Kroll, 2 for 21 on 2 targets. Marvin Mims Jr., 4 catches, 13 yards on 4 targets, plus 3 carries, 17 yards. Will Lutz was 0 for 2 on field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. And Riley Dixon had 5 punts, averaging 47.2, long punt of 57, with 1 inside the 20. Okay, leading tackler for the Denver defense is Brandon Jones with 9 tackles. Pat Surtain II, 5 solo tackles. PJ Locke, good to see him back out there. He had 7 tackles. Riley Moss had 6 tackles. Jonathan Cooper, 6 tackles and a sack. Nick Bonito, 3 solo tackles and a sack for Denver. Total yards, not a lot in this game. Just 300 for the Chiefs and 260 for the Broncos. Passing yards, Kansas City 243, Denver 182. Rush yards favored the Broncos 78-57. 19 first downs for the Chiefs and 16 for the Broncos. And 7 of 13 third downs for Denver, 7 of 16 for KC, plus 2 for 2 on 4th down. 6 penalties, 35 yards for the Broncos, 2 sacks taken for 33. No lost fumbles or interceptions, and 5 punts. 3 penalties, 10 yards for Kansas City, 4 sacks taken for 23. Also no lost fumbles or interceptions, and 4 punts for them. Time of possession, 33 minutes, 21 seconds for the Chiefs. 26 minutes and 39 seconds for the Denver Broncos. Closing line is Kansas City -7. Over-under is 42.5. I picked the Chiefs to win and the Broncos to cover, and I got both picks right, as Denver only loses by a couple. So now I am 3-2 straight up and 2-3 ATS. Next up, you've got the Minnesota Vikings at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and man, this was an ugly game. Literally an ugly game. Minnesota ends up winning this game 12-7 to go to 7-2 on the season, while Jacksonville joins the New York Giants with the worst record in the NFL at 2-8. We'll begin with individual numbers for the Vikings, beginning with Sam Darnold. Not his best day by any stretch. 24 of 38, 241, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 48.2 QB rating, and 7 carries, 28 yards. Aaron Jones, 17 carries, 88 yards. Cam Akers, 13 carries, and 38 yards. Top receiver for Minnesota is TJ Hawkinson. 8 catches, 72 yards on 9 targets. Josh Oliver, 4 for 52 on 6 targets. Justin Jefferson held to 48 yards on 5 receptions on 9 targets. Jordan Addison, 2 catches, 25 yards on 5 targets. And Aaron Jones added 2 catches for 13 on 3 targets. Here's a kicker you probably never heard of. John Parker Romo. He played college ball at Virginia Tech. He was doing the place kicking duties for Minnesota. He was 4 for 4 on field goals. Long was 45 with no extra points. Ryan Wright with just 2 punts, averaging 36 yards. Long punt was 43, and 1 inside the 20-yard line. Okay. You have 4 Minnesota Vikings with 5 tackles apiece. Stephon Gilmore, Blake Cashman, Joshua Metellus, and Ivan Pace Jr. They all have 5 tackles in this game. Cashman and Pace each added a sack. Speaking of which, Andrew Van Ginkel also had a sack to go along with his 3 solo tackles. Jonathan Grenard, 3 tackles. Cameron Bynum, 3 tackles, 1 pass defense, and an interception. And further down the depth chart, you've got Byron Murphy Jr. with 1 solo tackle, 1 pass defense, and an interception as well. For Jacksonville, Mac Jones filling in for the injured Trevor Lawrence. Jones was 14 of 22, 111, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 38.3 QB rating. And I think this is his first start for the Jaguars, if I'm not mistaken. He also had 5 carries, 8 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Travis Etienne, 11 carries, 44 yards. 1 catch for -1. Ouch. Meanwhile, Tank Bigsby was held to 4 yards rushing on 2 carries. That's all he did in this game. Evan Ingram, 6 catches, 40 yards, 8 targets. Brenton Strange, 2 catches, 25 yards on 3 targets. And that's pretty much it for the receivers. Not much to talk about there. Cam Little, no field goals and 1 for 1 on extra points. Logan Cook, 5 punts, averaging 54.8 long punts, 68, 1 touchback for inside the 20-yard line. Alright, so you had 2 Jaguars finish with double-digit sacks. You had, or not double-digit sacks, but rather double-digit tackles. Devin Lloyd led the way with 16 total tackles. Foye Oluokun had 11 tackles, plus a pass defense and an interception. Tyson Campbell had 9 tackles and a pass defense. Devon Hamilton had 7 tackles. Andre Cisco, 5 tackles. Antonio Johnson with 4 tackles. Darnell Savage, 4 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. And Ventrell Miller, 4 tackles and a pass defense for Jacksonville. Total yards, 402 for the Vikings, only 143 for the Jaguars. Ouch. Minnesota held the edge in both pass yards, 233 to 87, and rush yards, 169 to 56. First downs were nearly a 3-1 edge to Minnesota. 28 first downs for the Vikings, 10 for the Jaguars. That's it, 10. Third downs, 5 of 14 for Minnesota, 5 of 11 for Jacksonville. The Vikings were also 1 for 1 on 4th down. 6 penalties, 40 yards for the Vikings, 1 sack taken for 8. No lost fumbles, 3 interceptions, 2 punts. 3 penalties, 25 yards for the Jaguars. 3 sacks taken for 24. 1 lost fumble, 2 interceptions, and 5 punts. Time of possession clearly favors Minnesota at 42 minutes, 19 seconds, putting them deep in ball hog territory, while Jacksonville had the ball for just 17 minutes and 41 seconds. So all around, a bad day for the Jaguars. Closing line was Minnesota -6.5, and the over-under was 42.5. Maybe I spoke too soon when I said it was a bad day overall for the Jaguars. I picked Minnesota to win and to cover. Jacksonville loses by just 5. So they cover as the home underdog. So now I am 4-2 straight up and 2-4 in my ATS picks. Next up, you've got the New England Patriots at the Chicago Bears. The Patriots win this one 19-3. They will move to 2-7, or They were 2-7 coming in. They're now 3-7. Sorry about that. Chicago has now lost 3 in a row, and they fell to 4-5. Individual numbers for the Pats, starting with rookie Drake May. 15 of 25, 184 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 79.4 QB rating, plus 4 carries, 24 yards. Alright, Ramondre Stevenson, 20 carries, 74 yards, 1 catch, 3 yards on 1 target. And Antonio Gibson, 5 carries, 26 yards. Jamichael Hasty, 6 carries, 20 yards, and 1 catch, 4 yards. Leading receivers for the Patriots include Austin Hooper, 3 catches, 64 yards on 4 targets. Demario Douglas, 4 catches, 50 yards on 5 targets. And Kayshon Boutte, 4 catches, 47 yards on 6 targets. Jalen Polk caught a touchdown in the game for New England. Joey Sly, 4 for 4 on field goals. Long was 37, 1 for 1 on extra points. And Bryce Behringer, 5 punts averaging 57, long punt an impressive 75, 2 touchbacks and 1 punt inside the 20-yard line. Jelani Tavai led the Patriots defense with 8 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. Jeremiah Farms Jr., 5 tackles and a sack. Marcus Jones, 4 solo tackles and a pass defense. Anthony Jennings, 4 solo tackles and 2 sacks. Jonathan Jones, no relation to Marcus Jones. He had 5 tackles. Keon White, 4 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. Oh, I'm not done though. Dietrich Wise Jr. He had 2 solo tackles, 2 sacks, and a pass defense. Del Pettis, you probably never heard of this guy. He's a rookie out of Troy. He had 2 solo tackles, a sack, and a pass defense. And you probably haven't heard of Brendan Schooler, 3rd-year man out of Texas. 1 solo tackle and a sack for the Patriots. Bad day for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. Williams was 16 of 30 for 120, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 63.2 QB rating, and only 2 carries for 15 yards. DeAndre Swift was held to 16 carries, 59 yards, added 1 catch for 6 yards on 1 target. Keenan Allen, 5 catches, 44 yards on 6 targets. DJ Moore, 3 catches, 24 yards on 6 targets. Roma Dunze, 3 for 23 on 6 targets. And Cole Kmet, 2 catches, 13 yards on 4 targets. Cairo Santos, 1 for 1 on field goals. Long 33, no extra points. But Torrey Taylor was a busy man. He had 8 punts averaging 41.9. Long punt 62 with 1 touchback and 2 inside the 20-yard line. Alright. TJ Edwards, leading tackler for Chicago. He had 13 tackles, 1 pass defense, and 1 interception. Kevin Byard, 11 tackles and a pass defense. Elijah Hicks, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Jervon Dexter Sr. had 5 tackles. Kyler Gordon had 4 tackles. Tyreek Stevenson also had 4 tackles. And you got a sack and 3 tackles from Jacob Martin. And 4 tackles and a pass defense from Tremaine Edmonds. Total yards 328 for the Patriots, 142 for the Bears. Passing yards 184 to 69 New England. Rush yards 144 to 73 New England. The Patriots had 16 first downs, Bears 11. Third down, 5 of 14 for the Patriots, 1 for 14 for the Chicago Bears. If you do the math, that's only 7%. Fourth downs, 1 for 1 for the Patriots and 2 for 4 for Chicago. New England, 7 penalties, 40 yards, 1 sack taken for no yards. No lost fumble, 1 interception, and 5 punts. 5 penalties, 25 yards for the Bears. How about 9 sacks taken for 51 yards? No lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 8 punts. 32 minutes, 28 seconds, time of possession for New England. 27 minutes and 32 seconds for the Bears. Closing line was Chicago -6, over under 37. I foolishly took the Bears to win straight up, so I dropped to 4-3 straight up. But I did pick the Patriots with the 6 points, so I am happy to report that I won that portion of the pick. So now I'm 3-4 in my ATS picks. If you're joining me late, you're watching the week that was, as we're running down the team and individual stats from week 10 in the NFL. Coming up is my week 11 power rankings and a look at the NFL playoff races after 10 weeks of play. All that is coming straight up, so don't go away. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Alright, we're halfway through the recap. We continue now with one of the games of the week. The Pittsburgh Steelers cool off the red-hot Washington Commanders in D.C. this week, 28-27. As the Steelers move to 7-2. And Washington taking a loss for the first time in a while. I think they've won 4 in a row. They are now 7-3 on the season. We'll start with individual numbers for the Steelers, beginning with Russell Wilson. 14 of 28, 195 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception, and a QB rating of 93.6. Miles Killebrew, who is a free safety for the Steelers, attempted a pass for a 39.6 passer rating. Alright, 14 carries, 66 yards, and 2 catches, 29 yards on 2 targets for Jaylen Warren. 21 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown for Najee Harris. Alright, leading receivers for Pittsburgh include George Pickens, 5 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. Mike Williams, the newest Pittsburgh Steeler. Of course, the Jets, they traded for him from the New York Jets. So he made his Steelers debut on Sunday. 1 catch, 32 yards, 1 target, and he made it count because it went for a touchdown. Calvin Austin III, 2 catches, 20 yards on 6 targets. And Pat Freiermuth, 3 catches, 17 yards on 3 targets. Chris Boswell, no field goals, 4 for 4 on extra points. And Corliss Wattman, 5 punts, averaging 42.4, long punt 51, 3 punts inside the 20-yard line. Patrick Queen, who will be facing his former team, the Baltimore Ravens, next week, had 7 tackles and a pass defense, leading the Steelers' defense. Joey Porter Jr., balling just like his dad, 5 solo tackles. Deshaun Elliott, 6 tackles. Landon Roberts, 5 tackles. Minkah Fitzpatrick with 4 solo tackles. Preston Smith, with 3 solo tackles and a sack. Larry Ogunjobi with 3 tackles. And Cam Hayward, 2 solo tackles, 2 sacks, and a pass defense for the Steelers. On the other side for the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels, 17 of 34, 202 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 68.5 QB rating, and 3 carries, 5 yards. Alright. Austin Ekeler was Washington's leading rusher, 13 carries, 44 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 reception, 7 yards on 2 targets. And Jeremy McNichols, randomly or rarely used running back, he had 4 carries, 7 yards, and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin, putting up Terry McLaurin stats. 5 catches, 113 on 6 targets. Noah Brown, he was the man that caught the Hail Mary against the Bears a couple weeks ago. He had 3 catches, 33 yards on 7 targets. Zach Ertz, 4 for 31 on 8 targets. Zane Gonzalez, 2 for 2 on field goals, longest 48, 3 for 3 on extra points. Tress Way, 6 punts, averaging 55, long punt, 74, very impressive. 1 touchback and 2 inside the 20-yard line. Alright, leading tackler for the Commanders is Jeremy Chinn, 12 tackles, plus a pass defense and an interception. Sheldon Day had 8 tackles. Frankie Louvu finishes with 7 tackles and a sack. Bobby Wagner, the ageless one, he had 6 tackles. Pretty good game for Dante Fowler Jr., 5 tackles and 2 sacks. Benjamin St. Juste, 5 tackles. Mike Sanderstil, another rookie from Michigan, 5 tackles and a pass defense. And Quan Martin with 6 tackles and a forced fumble for the Commanders. Total yards, 312 for the Steelers, 242 for the Commanders. Passing yards, 182 to 172, slight advantage to Washington. Rush yards is 140 to 60 for Pittsburgh. The Steelers also had the edge in first downs, 21 to 19. 7 of 16 on third downs for the Steelers, 5 of 14 for the Commanders. Pittsburgh 1 for 2 on fourth down, Washington 0 for 1. 5 penalties, 49 yards for the Steelers, 3 sacks taken for 23, 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, 5 punts. 5 penalties, 41 yards for the Commanders, 3 sacks taken for 20, 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, 6 punts. Time of possession, 36 minutes and 11 seconds for the Steelers. That puts them in ball hawk territory. Washington had the ball for 23 minutes, 49 seconds. Closing line was Washington minus 1.5, over under 45.5. I did take the Steelers straight up and against the spread. I did get the straight up pick, moving to 5-3 overall. But I fall to 3-5 in my spread picks, as I also took the Steelers to cover as the underdog in this game. The last of the early afternoon games, you had Christian McCaffrey returning for the San Francisco 49ers as they made the cross-country trip to Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers, who's kind of been in a slide recently. And the slide continues as San Francisco wins 23-20 to improve to 5-4 on the season. Tampa Bay is now 4-6. I think they've lost either 3 in a row or 4 in a row, something to that effect. Individual numbers for the 49ers will start with Brock Purdy. 25 of 36, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 119.3 QB rating, plus 4 carries, 17 yards. Alright, Christian McCaffrey, who had an Achilles injury which cost him to miss half of 2024, made his season debut on Sunday, held to 13 carries, 39 yards, but 6 catches, 68 yards on 7 targets. Juwan Jennings, 7 catches, 93 yards on 11 targets. Ricky Pearsall, who of course was shot in an attempted robbery in San Francisco over the summer. He had 4 catches, 73 yards in his first NFL touchdown on 6 targets. And Deebo Samuel Jr., 5 for 62 on 6 targets. George Kittle, 3 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets. Up and down day for kicker Jake Moody. 3 of 6 on field goals, long as 44, but he did win with a field goal. And 2 for 2 on extra points. Mitch Wishnowsky, only 1 punt for 35 yards, which landed inside the 20-yard line. Alright, Fred Campbell had 9 tackles to lead the Niners defense. Devondre Campbell Sr. with 7 tackles and a pass defense. Renardo Green, there we go, 5 tackles, 2 passes defense. Denominor Lenore, 7 tackles. Nick Bosa, 4 tackles and a sack. Malik Mustafa with 7 tackles. Isaac Yiadom, 3 tackles. And Malik Collins, 2 solo tackles and a sack for the Bang Bang Niner game. For the Bucs, Baker Mayfield, 18 of 29 for 116 with a touchdown and no interceptions, and an 82 passer rating, and 3 rushes, 3 yards. Alright, Bucky Irving, 13 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. 3 receptions, 14 yards on 3 targets. And Rachaad White, 10 carries, 31 yards. And he led Tampa Bay with 6 catches, 39 yards, and a receiving score on 7 targets. Other receiver that's worth mentioning here is Cade Otton, 5 catches, 35 yards on 8 targets. Chase McLaughlin, 2 for 2 on field goals, long field goal 30, 2 for 2 on extra points. And Trenton Gill with 6 punts averaging 45.5 yards, long punt 50, with 2 inside the 20-yard line. Try saying that 10 times fast. Okay, Jordan Whitehead, 12 tackles leading the way for the Bucs. Antoine Winfield Jr., 8 tackles and a pass defense. Kalijah Kancey, 5 solo tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. Levante David, 8 tackles. Josh Hayes, 6 tackles and 2 passes defensed. Zion McCollum, 3 solo tackles. Christian Eisen, Izien, 4 tackles. And Joe Tryon Shoyinka with 2 solo tackles and a sack for the Bucs. Total yards 413 for San Francisco, 215 for Tampa. Passing yards 338 to 105 for the Niners. Rush yards are 110 to 75 for the Buccaneers. 24 first downs for the Niners, 18 for the Bucs. San Francisco 5 of 11 on 3rd down. Tampa Bay 5 of 14 on 3rd down. Plus 1 for 1 on 4th down. 6 penalties, 49 yards for the Niners. 3 sacks taken for 15. 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, 1 punt. 5 penalties, 42 yards for the Buccaneers. 2 sacks taken for 11. No lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 6 punts. Time of possession, 31 minutes, 48 seconds for the 49ers. 28 minutes, 12 seconds for Tampa. Closing line, San Francisco minus 6.5. Over under 50. I took the Niners to win and cover. I got the straight up pick, so now I'm 6-3 in those. But I am now, I think, 3-6 in my ATS picks after this latest setback. Okay, there are only 3 games in the late afternoon portion of the schedule, so we'll start off with the Los Angeles Chargers beating the Tennessee Titans in SoFi Stadium 27-17. The Chargers moved to 6-3 on the backs of their defense, while the Titans, who still has the number 1 total defense in the NFL, they are now 2-7. Start with individual numbers for the LA Chargers. Justin Herbert didn't have to throw the ball all that much. 14 of 18 for 164 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a 123.2 QB rating. Herbert added 9 rushes, 32 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Gus Edwards, 10 for 55 yards. J.K. Dobbins, 15 for 50. And here's another former Michigan Wolverine, Hassan Haskins. 2 carries, 4 yards, and his first NFL touchdown. Leading the receivers for LA is Ladd McConkey, another rookie. 2 catches, 52 yards on 2 targets. Josh Palmer, just 1 catch for 36 on 2 targets. Will Dissly, 5 for 30 yards on 6 targets. And Quentin Johnston, 2 catches, 24 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. Cameron Dicker, 2 for 2 on field goals, long 37, 3 for 3 on extra points. J.K. Scott, 3 punts, averaging 38.7, long punt 47, with 1 inside the 20-yard line. Alright. Deion Henley had 13 tackles and a sack, leading the LA defense. Elijah Moden with 8 tackles. Bud Dupree, 5 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. Tuli Topolotu, 5 tackles and 2 sacks. Cam Hart, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Aloy Gilman, 3 solo tackles, and Derwin James with 4 tackles. Puna Ford, let's not forget about him. He had 2 solo tackles and a sack. Joey Bosa also added a tackle and a sack for the Chargers. For the Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, 18 of 23, 175, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 127.4 QB rating. Probably his best game of 2024. Levis also had 5 rushes for 41 yards. Tajay Spears, 7 carries, 47 yards. 3 receptions for 4 yards on 3 targets. Tony Pollard, 9 carries, 44 yards. And 4 receptions, 19 yards on 4 targets. Calvin Ridley, 5 catches, 84 yards, 2 scores on 9 targets. Nick Westbrook-Akine, 3 catches, 31 yards on 3 targets. And Bryce Oliver, he had 2 catches, 23 yards on 2 targets. Nick Folk, 1 for 2 on field goals, long is 27, 2 for 2 on extra points for the 17-year kicker out of Arizona. Ryan Stonehouse, still one of the best in the business. 4 punts for 53.5 average, 58 long. 3 punts inside the 20-yard line. Alright. Jack Gibbons racking up the tackles for the Titans defense. He had 15. including 10 solo tackles for the former Minnesota Golden Gopher. Mike Brown, 7 tackles. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., 5 tackles. Kenneth Murray, 6 tackles. Harold Landry, 5 tackles. Amani Hooker had 4 tackles. Roger McCreary, 3 tackles and a pass defense. And Jeffrey Simmons with 5 tackles and a pass defense as well. Total yards, 309 for the Chargers, 289 for the Titans. Passing yards slightly favored the Chargers at 164 to 157. Rush yards also a slight advantage to LA, 145 to 132. 23 first downs for the Bolts, 19 for the Titans. Tennessee 3 of 9 on third down, LA 4 for 10, plus 1 for 1 on fourth down. 9 penalties, 68 yards for the Titans, 7 sacks taken for 18, no lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 4 punts. 5 penalties, 30 yards for the Chargers, no sacks taken, no lost fumbles or interceptions, and 3 punts. Time of possession, 30 minutes, 59 seconds for the Chargers, 29 minutes, 1 second for the Titans, so it's nearly distributed. Time of possession nearly distributed evenly. Closing line was LA minus 8.5, over under 39.5. I took LA to win and to cover. That moves me to 7-3 in my straight up picks and 4-6 ATS. And this is my lock of the week, which I continue to crush. I am now 8-2 this season with my lock picks. Okay. You can pretty much say this was a letdown game for the New York Jets. 10 days earlier, they defeated the Houston Texans in the Meadowlands on Thursday Night Football. Fast forward to Sunday, the Jets get dominated by the Arizona Cardinals 31-6. Arizona remains atop the NFC West with a record of 6-4, while the slumping New York Football Jets pretty much done for the season at this point at 3-7. We'll start with individual numbers for the Cardinals, and how about Kyler Murray? Very efficient. 22 of 24, 266 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 126.7 QB rating. Plus 3 carries, 21 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Trey Benson, good game on the ground, 10 carries, 62 yards, that's 6.2 per carry. James Conner was pretty much held down, 12 carries, 33 yards, but he does score a touchdown. And he led the Cardinals in receiving with 5 catches, 80 yards on 5 targets. Trey McBride, 4 catches, 71 yards on 5 targets. Rookie Marvin Harrison Jr., 5 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown on 5 targets. Trey Benson, 2 for 25 on 2 targets. Michael Wilson, 4 catches, or rather 3 catches for 24 on 4 targets. And Elijah Higgins, 2 for 13 on 2 targets. Chad Ryland, 1 for 1 on field goals, only connect from 37, 4 for 4 on extra points. And Blake Gillikin, just 1 punt on the day for 40 yards, and it landed inside the 20-yard line. So a pretty easy day for Mr. Gillikin. Budda Baker had 9 tackles, a sack, and a pass defense, pacing this Arizona D. Garrett Williams, 7 tackles. What college did he go to? Syracuse, okay. Dadron Taylor Demerson had 6 tackles and 2 passes defensed. Starling Thomas V, 5 tackles and a pass defensed. Zaven Collins, 3 solo tackles. Mack Wilson Sr. with 2 tackles. Sean Murphy Bunting with 2 tackles, and both were solo for each. And finally, Max Melton. He had, here he is, 3 tackles and a pass defensed. For the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers looked like old man Rodgers on Sunday. 22 of 35, 151 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 72.4 QB rating. Breece Hall, 10 for 52 yards rushing, 4 for 31 yards receiving on 4 targets. Braylon Allen, 7 carries, 27 yards, 1 catch, 7 yards on 1 target. Their top 2 receivers pretty much held down in this game. 5 catches, 41 yards, 6 targets for Garrett Wilson. And 6 catches, 31 yards on 13 targets for Davante Adams. Spencer Schrader, 2 for 2 on field goals, long kick 45, no extra points. Thomas Morstead, just 2 punts at 46.5 on average, long punt 47, 1 inside the 20-yard line. Jamien Sherwood led the Jets with 17 tackles. That's 7 solo tackles and 10 assisted tackles. That brings you to 17. Tony Adams with 10 tackles, 5 of each solo and assists. DJ Reed, 4 solo tackles. Quincy Williams, 10 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. Sam Agavoan had 4 tackles. Isaiah Oliver, 3 tackles. And Jalen Mills had 8 tackles. 7 of those were assisted tackles. Alright, total yards are 406 for Arizona, 207 for New York. Pass yards, 259 for the Cardinals, 128 for the Jets. Rush yards, 147 for the Cardinals, 79 for the Jets. 28 first downs by Arizona versus New York's 17. Jets 6 of 13 on third down. Cardinals an impressive 5 for 7. Fourth downs, 1 for 3 for the Jets, 1 for 1 for the Redbirds. 3 penalties, 25 yards for New York. 3 sacks taken for 23 yards. 1 lost fumble, no interceptions, 2 punts. 5 penalties, 58 yards for Arizona. 1 sack taken for 7. No lost fumbles, no interceptions, and 1 punt. Time of possession, 32 minutes, 42 seconds for the Cardinals. 27 minutes, 18 seconds for the Jets. Closing line was New York -2, over-unders 46. I took the Jets to win and cover because I thought they were the better team going in, and boy was I wrong as they get smashed in this game. So now I am 7-4 straight up and 4-7 in my ATS picks. Next up is a huge rivalry game in the NFC East as the Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Dallas Cowboys 34-6. They did more than defeat the Dallas Cowboys. They curb stomped the Dallas Cowboys. Philly's win coupled with Washington's loss earlier in the day puts the Eagles in first place in the NFC East at 7-2. Meanwhile, the Cowboys' free fall continues as they drop to 3-6, and there is news here on Dak Prescott. He suffered a torn hamstring about a week ago, And it is now listed that he will be having surgery on that ankle in New York tomorrow, effectively ending his 2024 season. So if you're the Cowboys, you're stuck with either Cooper Rush or Trey Lance as your starter for the rest of the season. That sucks. Individual numbers starting for the Philadelphia Eagles. Another effective game for Jalen Hurts. 14 of 20 for 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 115 QB rating, 7 carries, 56 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So Jalen Hurts was responsible for all 4 of Philadelphia's touchdowns on Sunday. In addition to that interception, Hurts also had a fumble in this game. Kenny Pickett came in for a brief period at the end, finished 1 for 2 for 5 yards and a 56.3 QB rating. Not exactly earth-shattering numbers from Saquon Barkley, but these will do. 14 carries, 66 yards, 1 catch, 12 yards on 1 target. I talked about Jalen Hurts. Will Shipley, 9 carries, 34 yards. Kenneth Gainwell, 7 carries, 30 yards. Another 100-yard game for A.J. Brown, 5 catches, 109 on 7 targets. Jahan Dotson, 1 catch, 27 yards and 1 target. Dallas Goedert made his return to the lineup. He had 2 catches, 25 yards, and a touchdown on 3 targets. Devontae Smith, pretty much an afterthought in this game, just 2 catches, 14 yards on 3 targets. Jake Elliott, a perfect 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 39, and a perfect 4 for 4 on extra points. Braden Mann, 4 punts, averaging 52 yards. Long punt 55, 2 touchbacks, and 1 inside the 20-yard line. How about Zach Bond? 8 tackles and 2 forced fumbles, pacing this Philadelphia defense. Nakobe Dean, 6 tackles. Reed Blankenship with 4 tackles. Isaiah Rodgers also had 4 tackles. Rookie Cooper DeJean with 3 solo tackles. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, 7 tackles, a pass defense, and an INT. Jalen Carter, 4 tackles and half a sack plus a pass defense. Milton Williams, 2 solo tackles and a sack. Quinyon Mitchell, 2 tackles, 2 passes defense. Brandon Graham also had half a sack. Bryce Huff added a sack and a forced fumble. Jalix Hunt had a pass defense. Darius Big Play Slay did not record a tackle or a sack in this game, but he did have 2 passes defense for the Eagles. Not much to talk about with the Dallas Cowboys. Cooper Rush started the game, and boy was he bad. 13 of 23, just 45 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions, 61.7 QB rating. Trey Lance came in the 4th quarter, finished 4 of 6 for 21 yards with no touchdowns and an interception, and a 32.6 QB rating. And the rushing numbers for both quarterbacks were not good. 3 of 17 for Lance, 2 for 2 yards for Rush. Rico Dowdle, 12 carries, 53 yards for the Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott, just 6 for 22 yards. Okay. Jake Ferguson led Dallas's receivers with 4 catches, 24 yards on 5 targets. And I think he got hurt in this game, but they don't mention his injury. But that's okay. CeeDee Lamb, 6 catches, 21 yards on 10 targets. Jalen Tolbert, 3 for 14 on 5 targets. Brandon Aubrey, 2 for 2 on field goals. Long was 46 and no extra points. Brian Anger, 6 punts, averaging 50.7. Long punt 59, 2 inside the 20. You would do that. DeMarvion Overshown, 11 tackles and 2 sacks. And according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, he was diagnosed with bursitis in his right knee after the game. We'll see how long he'll be sitting out. So the hits just keep on coming for this Dallas Cowboys team. Just can't seem to get healthy. Eric Kendricks, 8 tackles. Kalen Carson, 5 tackles and 2 passes defense. Maris Leofau, 4 solo tackles. Carlos Watkins, 4 tackles. Malik Hooker also with 4 tackles. Donovan Wilson, 3 solo tackles. Michael Parsons, 2. Michael Parsons, who was listed on the Dallas injury report with an ankle, he had 2 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. Meanwhile, Lawson and Odigizua each had half a sack for the Cowboys. Trayvon Diggs, a pass defense, and an interception. Alright, total yards, 348 for the Eagles, 146 for the Cowboys. Passing yards, 161 to 49 for Philly. Rush yards also favored the Eagles at 187 to 97. First downs, more than 2-1 to Philadelphia, 24-11. 4 of 11 on third down for the Eagles, 3 of 14 for the Cowboys. Philly 1 for 1 on fourth down, Dallas 2 for 2. 7 penalties, 49 yards for the Eagles, 5 sacks taken for 46 yards, all in the first half. 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, and 4 punts. 5 penalties, 40 yards for the Cowboys, 3 sacks taken for 17. 4 lost fumbles, 1 interception, and 6 punts. So yeah, that's 5 turnovers total for the Dallas Cowboys. 34 minutes, 1 second, time of possession for Philadelphia. 25 minutes, 59 seconds for the boys. Closing line, Philadelphia minus 7.5, over under 44.5. Took Philly to win and cover won both picks. That makes me 8-4 straight up. And 5-7 ATS. Moving on to Sunday Night Football, and it looked like the Houston Texans were going to waltz away with this one. They led by 16 points at halftime. They had a turnover. Happy third quarter. And then all of a sudden, the Lions started to run the ball a little more, and they ended up beating the Houston Texans 26-23 for their best start since 1956 at 8-1, while Houston drops back-to-back games and falls to 6-4. Oh, and by the way, this is the first time in 13 games under head coach Dan Campbell in which the Lions won after trailing by 10 or more points at halftime. As I said, they were down 16 in this game at one point. Individual numbers for the Lions. Listen to this stat line for Jared Goff. 15 of 30, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 5, count them, 5 interceptions. QB rating of 59.7. Limited running the ball, just 1 rush for 2 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 19 for 71 yards rushing. 2 catches, 37 yards receiving on 3 targets. And David Montgomery, 12 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown rushing. 1 catch, 24 yards on 2 targets. Alright. Sam Laporta, 3 catches, 66 yards on 6 targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 catches, 60 yards on 8 targets, both with a touchdown reception. Jake Bates, 2 for 2 on field goals, including the game winner from 58, which was his longest, and 2 for 2 on extra points. Jack Fox, 4 punts at 47 yards per punt, long punt 60, 1 inside the 20-yard line. Brian Branch led the Lions defense with 10 tackles and 2 passes defensed. Then you've got Jack Campbell with 7 tackles and a pass defensed. Alim McNeil, 6 tackles and a sack. Josh Paschal, 5 tackles and a sack. Alex Anzalone, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Carlton Davis, the unsung hero for this Lions D, 4 solo tackles, 2 passes defensed, 2 INTs. Amik Robertson, 4 tackles. Terrion Arnold, 4 tackles and a pass defense. And Pat O'Connor, 2 solo tackles and a sack for Detroit. For Houston, C.J. Stroud, 19 of 33, 232 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 64.2 QB rating. Alright, Joe Mixon held to 25 carries, 46 yards, but he does score a rushing touchdown and added 2 catches for 44 yards on 4 targets. John Mechie was the leading receiver for the Texans. 5 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. Dalton Schultz, 3 for 66 on 4 targets. I mentioned Joe Mixon. Tank Dell, 5 for 39 on 9 targets. Kaimi Fairbairn, 3 for 4 on field goals, long 56. 2 of 2 on extra points. Tommy Townsend, 5 punts at 55 per punt, long was 62, with 2 inside the 20-yard line. Azeez Al-Shaair, with 8 tackles and a forced fumble. Jimmy Ward, 5 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Danielle Hunter, 7 tackles. Henry Tutu, 6 tackles, pass defense, and an interception. Eric Murray, 4 tackles. Kadar Hallman with 3 solo tackles. Jalen Petrie, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Tommy Togiel, 3 tackles and a pass defense. Kalen Bullock with 3 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Kamari Lassiter had 2 tackles, or 1 tackle, 2 passes defense, and an interception. And D'Amico Autry had 2 tackles, both assisted, and 1 pass defense for the Texans. Total yards, 345 for the Lions and 248 for the Texans. Passing yards, 240 to 192 for the Lions. Rush yards almost double for Detroit, 105 to 56. The Lions had 19 first downs, Texans with 16. Detroit 7 of 12 on third down, Houston 6 for 15. 4 penalties, 61 yards for the Lions, no sacks taken, no lost fumbles, but a whopping 5 interceptions as we talked about, and 4 punts. So they have more interceptions in this game than they did punts. 4 penalties, 30 yards for the Texans, 4 sacks taken for 40, no lost fumbles, 2 interceptions, 5 punts. Time of possession, Houston 32 minutes, 28 seconds. Detroit 27 minutes, 32 seconds. Closing line was Detroit -4, over under is 49. Alright, I picked the Lions Sorry. I picked the Lions to win and cover. So at that, Detroit won the straight up pick. I am now 9-4. And they lost, or Houston rather, covered the game, losing by just 3. And the spread was 4. So that makes me 5-8 in my ATS picks. Alright, the final game that we'll be looking at is Monday Night Football, as the Miami Dolphins travel west and beat the red-hot LA Rams 23-15 to move to 3-6 on the season. LA drops below 500 once again at 4-5. Individual numbers for the Dolphins, starting off with Tua Tagovailoa. 20 of 28, 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 89.4 QB rating. He ran once for -1. Devin Achane, 12 carries, 37 yards, 5 catches, 15 yards on 5 targets. Malik Washington, 1 rush for 18, and that goes for a touchdown, plus 1 catch for 17 on 2 targets. Alright, Jalen Waddle, 3 catches, 57 yards on 6 targets. Jonnu Smith, 3 for 45 on 4 targets. Raheem Mostert, 2 for 34 on 3 targets. Odell Beckham Jr., 2 for 17 on 2 targets. Tyreek Hill, the Cheetah, 3 catches, 16 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets. Jason Sanders, 3 for 3 on field goals. Long was 50, and 2 for 2 on extra points. Jake Bailey, 3 punts, averaging 44.7, long punt 51, 1 punt inside the 20-yard line. Leading tackler for the Dolphins is Jordan Brooks with 11. Anthony Walker Jr. had 9 tackles, a pass defense, and an interception. Jalen Ramsey, 6 tackles. Kendall Fuller, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Zach Sealer, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Javon Holland, 3 tackles and a sack. Calais Campbell, 3 tackles, a sack, and 2 passes defense. Quentin Bell added 2 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. And rookie Chop Robinson from Penn State added 2 tackles and a sack. Deshaun Hand also had a pass defense with his 3 tackles for the Dolphins. For the LA Rams, Matt Stafford, 32 of 46, 293 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 77.5 QB rating. Kyren Williams, 15 carries, 62 yards, 5 catches, 20 yards on 6 targets. Puka Nacua, 9 catches, 98 yards on 14 targets. Cooper Kupp, 7 catches, 80 yards on 7 targets. Davis Allen, 5 catches, 34 yards on 6 targets. Tyler Johnson, 3 for 25 on 4 targets. Joshua Carty, 5 for 6 on field goals, long was 55, no extra points. Ethan Evans, 3 punts, 49.3 average, long punt 51 with 2 inside the 20. Alright, Omar Speights had 8 tackles. Quentin Lake had 7 tackles. Kobe Turner, 6 tackles, a sack, and a pass defensed. Darius Williams, 4 solo tackles. Jarrett Verse, the rookie, 4 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. And then you've got Christian Roseboom, 3 tackles, 3 passes defensed, and an interception. Total yards, 327 for the Rams, 238 for the Dolphins. Passing yards favor Los Angeles, 257 to 171. Rush yards, slight favor to the Rams as well, 70 to 67. So really, both teams did not run the ball all that well. 20 first downs for LA, 15 for Miami. Dolphins 6 of 13 on third down, LA 3 of 12. 1 penalty, 15 yards for the Dolphins, 3 sacks taken for 36. 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, 3 punts. 6 penalties, 64 yards for the LA Rams, 4 sacks taken for 36. 1 lost fumble, 1 interception, and 3 punts as well. Nearly even when it comes to time of possession. LA 30 minutes 12 seconds, Miami 29 minutes 48 seconds. Closing line is LA -2, over under 49.5. I took the Dolphins to win and cover as the road dog. Glad I did. They won by 8. So for the week, I finished 10-4 in my straight up picks and 6-8 in my ATS picks. So for the season, I am 97-55 straight up. And I am 75. And I think I'm 75 and 2. I'll have to check my records there. Okay, so that's the recap. We'll take a look at the NFL playoff picture in a moment, but first, let's run through these Week 11 power rankings. Starting off at the bottom at number 32, down a spot, the Las Vegas Raiders at 2-7. They visit the Miami Dolphins this week. Number 31, down 7 spots, are the New York Giants at 2-8. They are off. One of 4 teams off this week. Number 30 is the New Orleans Saints, 3-7. They're up 2 spots from last week. They host the Cleveland Browns in the Superdome this week. Number 29, down 2 spots, are the Tennessee Titans at 2-7. They host the Minnesota Vikings. Number 28, up a spot from last week, are the Carolina Panthers at 3-7. They are off this week. Number 27, you've got the New England Patriots, up 3 spots from last week to number 27. They have a 3-7 record, and this week they will host Matthew Stafford and the Rams in Foxborough this week. Holding steady at number 26, but I did debate moving them down. The Dallas Cowboys at 3-6. This week they host their in-state rivals, the Houston Texans, on Monday Night Football. Number 25, down 3 spots, are the New York Jets at 3-7. They host the Indianapolis Colts this week at the Meadowlands. Despite not playing, the Cleveland Browns moved up to number 24 with a 2-7 record, and they are in New Orleans. Number 23, also moving up despite losing, are the Jacksonville Jaguars at 2-8. They visit the Lions in Detroit this week. Number 22, up or down 1 spot, are the Indianapolis Colts at 4-6. They visit the Jets in New York. Technically New Jersey, but you get the drift. Number 21, down a spot, are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 4-6. Their bye week couldn't have come at a better time. They need to get healthy. Down 4 spots to number 20 are the Chicago Bears at 4-5, hosting their long-standing rivals, the Green Bay Packers. Up 4 spots to number 19 are the Miami Dolphins at 3-6. They host the Las Vegas Raiders. Holding steady at number 18 after that narrow loss to the Chiefs are the Denver Broncos at 5-5, and they will host the Atlanta Falcons. That should be a pretty good game come Sunday. Number 17, down 2 spots, are the 4-5 Los Angeles Rams, who are off to New England this week to face Drake May and the Patriots. Number 16, up 3 spots, are the Cincinnati Bengals at 4-6. They play the LA Chargers in Inglewood on Sunday night. Number 15 are the Seattle Seahawks at 4-5. They are up 2 spots from last week. They visit the 49ers in hopes to avenge the earlier Thursday night loss in Seattle. Down 3 spots to number 14 are the Atlanta Falcons at 6-4. They are in Denver to face the Broncos. Holding steady at number 13, I felt it was wrong to punish this team further for losing that game, and that's the Houston Texans at 6-4. They are in Dallas to face the struggling Cowboys on Monday night. Up 2 spots to number 12, the very impressive Arizona Cardinals at 6-4. They are off this week. Up 1 spot to number 11 are the LA Chargers at 6-3. They host the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday night. Down 3 spots to number 10, despite not playing, are the Green Bay Packers at 6-3. They're back at it this week in Soldier Field against the Chicago Bears. Holding steady at number 9 are the Minnesota Vikings at 7-2. They are in Nashville this week playing the Titans. Up 2 spots to number 8 are the San Francisco 49ers at 5-4, and they will host the Seahawks in hopes of sweeping Seattle in their season series. Now I'm going to get it out of the way and say the Detroit Lions remain at number 1 with an 8-1 record. They host Jacksonville this week. As numbers 2 through 7 play head-to-head against one another this week. We'll start with the Buffalo Bills up 1 spot to number 7 at 8-2. They will host the number 2 team in my power rankings, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs at 9-0. So that's number 2 versus number 7 in that matchup. And then we kick the week off with the Washington Commanders down 2 spots to number 6 at 7-3. And the Philadelphia Eagles up 1 spot to number 4 at 7-2. The 2 teams meet at Lincoln Financial Field this Thursday night to kick off Week 11. And then the last 2 teams we'll look at are the Baltimore Ravens up 1 spot to number 5, and the Pittsburgh Steelers holding steady at number 3. Ravens are 7-3, Steelers are 7-2. They will meet in Pittsburgh on Sunday. So again, 2 through 7 in my power rankings will be playing each other this week. Okay, with one more order of business to go, we're just about done here. Just a friendly reminder to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell every time I go live. Now let's take a look at the latest NFL playoff races in both conferences entering Week 11, and we will start with the AFC. Your top 4 teams are the Kansas City Chiefs, leaders of the AFC West, 9-0 record, 3-0 in the West, 5-0 in the AFC. strength of schedule, and strength of victory, both at 483. Then you've got their opponent, the AFC East leading Buffalo Bills, in the number 2 spot at 8-2. 3-0 versus the East, 6-2 in the AFC. 417 strength of schedule, 355 strength of victory. The AFC North leaders, the Pittsburgh Steelers, hold down the number 3 spot at 7-2. No division record, but they will play the Ravens for their first division game of the season. They are 4-1 in the AFC. 437 strength of schedule, 456 strength of victory. And then the leaders of the South, the Houston Texans, sit in the number 4 spot at 6-4. 3-0 versus the South, 5-1 in the AFC. 510 strength of schedule, 424 strength of victory. As of right now, your 3 wildcard teams would be the Ravens, Chargers, and Broncos. Baltimore presently in the number 5 spot at 7-3. 2-1 in the North, 4-3 in the AFC. 500 strength of schedule, 507 strength of victory. The Los Angeles Chargers are in the 6th spot with a record of 6-3. 2-1 versus the West, 4-2 in the AFC. 459 strength of schedule, 298 strength of victory. The Denver Broncos currently sitting in that 7th and final playoff spot in the AFC at 5-5. 1-2 versus the West, 2-4 in the AFC. 505 strength of schedule, 306 strength of victory. On the outside of the playoffs, you've got the Colts and Bengals tied. Indianapolis is 4-6 overall, 1-3 versus the South, 3-4 in the AFC. 543 strength of schedule, 444 strength of victory. Cincinnati, also 4-6, is 1-2 versus the North, 2-4 in the AFC. 510 strength of schedule, 237 strength of victory. Indianapolis wins the tiebreaker over Cincinnati based on best win percentage in conference games. So this will put Indy at number 8 and Cincy at number 9. Sitting in 10th all by themselves are the 3-6 Miami Dolphins. 1-2 versus the East and 2-4 in the AFC. 471 strength of schedule, 310 strength of victory. Then you got a 2-way tie for 11th place with the Jets and Patriots. Both teams are 3-7. New York is 1-2 in the East, 3-4 in the AFC. 542 strength of schedule, 379 strength of victory. New England, also 3-7, is 1-2 in the East, 2-5 in the AFC. 379 strength of schedule and 379 strength of victory. New York wins the tiebreaker over New England based on best win percentage in common games. But the Patriots do have the head-to-head tiebreaker, which doesn't apply here, so that means the Jets are number 11 in the AFC and the Patriots are number 12. Then you got a 3-way tie with the Browns, Titans, and Raiders. All 3 teams sitting at 2-7. Cleveland is 1-1 versus the North and 2-3 in the AFC, with a strength of schedule of 465 and a strength of victory of 450. Tennessee is 0-1 in the South, 2-4 in the AFC. 529 strength of schedule, 316 strength of victory. And Vegas, also at 2-7, is 0-3 in the West and 2-5 in the AFC. 553 strength of schedule, 474 strength of victory. Cleveland wins the tiebreaker over both Tennessee and Vegas based on best win percentage in conference games. And Tennessee holds that same tiebreaker over Vegas based on best win percentage in conference games. So those are the same for both teams. At the bottom of the AFC, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars at 2-8. 1-1 versus the South, 2-4 in the AFC. 532 strength of schedule, 350 strength of victory. Switching over to the NFC, your division leaders would be the Detroit Lions atop the NFC North and sitting at the number 1 seed. Again, they have an 8-1 record. 2-0 versus the North, both wins coming against Green Bay and Minnesota. 6-1 in the NFC. 500 strength of schedule, 514 strength of victory. The Philadelphia Eagles claim the number 2 spot presently in the NFC, leading the East with a record of 7-2. 2-0 versus the East, 4-2 in the NFC. 368 strength of schedule, 328 strength of victory. And then you've got a tie with the Atlanta Falcons, leaders of the South, and the Arizona Cardinals, leaders of the West. Both teams sit with 6-4 records. Atlanta is 4-1 versus the South, 6-2 in the NFC. 495 strength of schedule, 414 strength of victory. Arizona is 2-0 versus the West, 3-3 in the NFC. 581 strength of schedule, 455 strength of victory. Atlanta wins the tiebreaker over Arizona based on best win percentage in conference games. They are 6-2 versus the NFC, whereas Arizona is only 3-3. As of right now, your 3 wildcard teams in the NFC would be the Vikings, Commanders, and Packers. Minnesota is in the 5 spot at 7-2. 1-1 versus the North, 3-2 in the NFC. 465 strength of schedule, 412 strength of victory. Washington, which have been in the 2 spot for a while, drops to the number 6 spot at 7-3. 2-0 versus the East, 5-1 in the NFC. 423 strength of schedule, 338 strength of victory. Green Bay sits in the number 7 and final playoff spot in the conference at 6-3. 0-2 versus the North, 2-3 in the NFC. 541 strength of schedule, 414 strength of victory. On the outside looking in, you've got the San Francisco 49ers sitting as the 8th seed. 5-4 record, 1-2 versus the West, 3-3 in the NFC. 506 strength of schedule, 354 strength of victory. Next, you've got a 3-way tie between the Bears, Rams, and Seahawks. All 3 teams sit at 4-5 on the season. Chicago has no record versus the North, and they're 2-2 in the NFC. So they pretty much played most, if not all, of their non-conference opponents. 420 strength of schedule, 289 strength of victory. LA, also 4-5, is 2-1 versus the West and 3-4 in the NFC. 549 strength of schedule, 500 strength of victory. And Seattle as well, sitting at 4-5, is 0-2 versus the West and 1-4 in the NFC. 512 strength of schedule, 436 strength of victory. Chicago wins the tiebreaker over Los Angeles based on head-to-head win percentage. They played earlier this year and the Bears won. And that leads to the next scenario here. The division tiebreaker was initially used to eliminate Seattle. The Rams own the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Seahawks, again based on head-to-head win percentage. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in the 12th spot at 4-6. 1-2 versus the South, 4-3 in the NFC. 656 strength of victory, or rather 656 strength of schedule, and 658 strength of victory, both leading the NFL. The Dallas Cowboys are down in 13th. They are 3-6. As of right now, they are 3 games out with 8 games left. 1-1 versus the East and 1-5 in the NFC. 553 strength of schedule, 393 strength of victory. Alright. Tied for 14th with the Saints and Panthers. New Orleans at 3-7 is 2-3 versus the South and 3-4 in the NFC. 542 strength of victory, 542 strength of schedule and 414 strength of victory. Carolina is also 3-7. They are 1-2 versus the South, 2-4 in the NFC. 433 strength of schedule, 241 strength of victory. New Orleans wins the tiebreaker over Carolina based on best win percentage in division games. New Orleans has a .400 win percentage within the NFC South, whereas Carolina is 3-3. The New York Giants round out the NFC at 2-8. 0-4 versus the East, 1-6 in the NFC. 543 strength of schedule, 333 strength of victory. And that wraps up the Week 10 edition of the week that was, as we took a look at all the individual and team statistical numbers from all 14 games across Week 10 in the NFL. I also gave you my Week 11 power rankings, as well as the updated NFL races after 10 weeks of play. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, but I will be back shortly with a look at the latest AP and coaches polls in college football. And this is just hours before the second college football playoff rankings are released. And I'll give you those official rankings tomorrow. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and enjoy the pigskin. Peace out.